Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to meet you all today. My name is Charlotte McKechnie. I'm Director of Performance with A-List Education, and I'm really excited to talk to you tonight about the SAT. Maybe give it one moment and then we will get started. I will say this is going to go at quite a pace tonight, quite a pace, but it is because I want to get through as much material as possible, but it is being recorded, and so, feel free to, don't panic. we will get everything sorted over the course of the hour. And we will I'm hoping to have a Q&A at the end. My idea is to have time at the end, so please feel free to type questions into the chat, and hopefully there'll be time at the end for them. Any questions, if it has happened in the past that I get too enthusiastic in my explanations, and if that's the case, I will do my best to type out explanations or answers later on. Well, there's a lot to get through, so let's get started. So this name of the game today is how do we get a 1600 on the SAT? And yes, that has now. Excellent. That has now launched. So part of this, the first part of this will be a short presentation, and then I'm going to share my screen and go through SAT practice questions from the most recently released SAT 11 on Bluebook, to show you, to use them to show you the tips that I recommend for each question type. As we go along at that point, I will say if you are a student with seeking to sit the SAT and have not yet sat practice test 11, I recommend pausing or coming back to the rest of it later. Okay, so this is our agenda, a brief recap of what the SAT is to any people new to standardized testing for American universities. Welcome, welcome. As we've got more people coming in, I'll give a brief overview of myself. My name is Charlotte McKechnie. I'm Director of Performance at A-List Education. I didn't know anyone who applied to the States, and I spent a lot of time on websites trying to work out what was going on. I ended up being in the fortunate position of choosing between Harvard and Stanford. I amongst others, but they were my top choices. I went to Harvard and graduated with a degree in history and literature. I worked in opera for a long time. I was a singer and then director, but I really always loved coaching, and so spend most of my time now working with wonderful students who also want to go to the States. As you can read here, if you're really inspired about the SAT and want to prepare especially for the May SAT, we have a boot camp coming up at the end of March, and the early bird discount is live until this week. And also for the privilege or for the, to say thank you for joining me this evening, we do have a code webinar 2402, which will give you 10% off our 5-hour tuition packages. So hopefully you can take advantage of those. Alrighty, let's get started. Very briefly, yes, it is a good idea to sit the SAT, even though it's optional at some universities. There's a difference between historically test optional universities and universities that went test optional at COVID during 2020. Many universities are now reinstituting their SAT requirements. So this point is increasingly moot, but just to demonstrate, we can see the percentages here of admitted students to these top universities who submitted SAT, ACT scores. So it is well worth sitting the test, and it's a long road to a strong score. So thank you for joining me tonight. Wonderful to be here. I'm sure some of you have already sat a practice SAT, but in case you haven't, or maybe you're a parent or an adult at home seeking to support a student wondering what on earth is the SAT. So the SAT is a standardized test. It is in 2 parts. You sit it on your laptop or your own iPad, tablet, etc., etc. You can sit practice tests on the Blue Book app, which is a free download from College Board. You sit both practice tests and the real exam on that app. As you can see, we've got 2 parts here. First part is English, second part is maths. They both have 2 modules. The first module of each in the SAT is a standard level, so everyone gets that first module. And then depending on the accuracy in module 1, you'll either be sent to an easy module 2 or a hard module 2. And again, this is the same for English and for maths. My first top tip for a 1600, okay, we need every question to be correct, but for a really good score, like if you want to get above 1500s, and frankly, like if you get a 1550 and a 1600, Harvard is not going to reject you because you got a 1550 and not a 1600. At that point, it's other things in your application. So, you're looking for something, again, if we go back to this, you're looking for something within this range. If you are at an independent school, you're looking for something at the higher end of this range. So, above 1550 is great. Above 1550 or above is A star, terrific, fabulous. But really, into the 1500s, and you're pretty grand. If you like a 1520 versus a 1550 is not the reason that you're not getting into Stanford. It will be other things on the application, or the writing, or someone else who applied and they needed a clarinetist or something. These things happen. Okay, but my point is, for getting a really good score, you need 100% in module 1. The majority of your points are coming from module 1. You actually get fractionally fewer points for the hard questions. Let me reiterate that again. Hard questions, fewer points. Easy, medium questions, more points. So put all of that effort into module 1. I'm not saying it's easy, but module 1 on test day tends to not be that bad. Definitely get it correct. Then on module 2, you want to answer the questions that are kind of easy, medium level first, and only then do the hard ones. That's really, really, really important. Every time a test comes out on Blue Book, I play around with it and see what numbers of questions I get deliberately right and wrong, and see what the answer is. I recently, deliberately guessed B on the 5 hardest questions on maths. Got everything else right, but deliberately didn't put anything. Came out with a 760. So yeah, you can. But those really painful questions that you might be having nightmares about, that's not where your great score is coming from. So module 1, all the effort. Module 2, get the easy, get the medium. Honestly, just guess on the hardest questions. It's actually a better use of time. We're going to start with SAT Maths because it is frankly a bit bizarre. In terms of it's not maths, it's more problem solving. Okay, the things that you need to know. We're going to talk about techniques and things like that. But in order to utilize techniques most effectively, it's useful to know the underlying theories, even if we then don't ultimately use them. So, linear versus nonlinear. So straight lines, quadratics. Can you recognize positive versus negative exponential functions, etc., etc. They are a big fan of graphing functions. Graphing functions is very, very common on the SAT. So do be familiar with, why is y equals f of x. You want to know that. So largely, when you're looking at this is pretty much all GCSE maths, with the exception of absolute value. That's not on the GCSE syllabus. It's a small point. It's probably going to be 1 question every 3 math papers. I wouldn't hugely worry about it. I'm happy to tutor you in absolute value, but don't panic. What you really want to, what will come up every single time are these solutions to simultaneous linear equations. Basic trigonometry, I'm talking about SOHCAHTOA. If you know SOHCAHTOA, you're probably going to be fine for the trigonometry. Geometry, they give you a lot of the area and volume equations, so it's really knowing how to manipulate those. So go back to your GCSE math notes, make sure that you're really comfortable in it, and then your task is going to be pairing that knowledge with the SAT language. And SAT maths is a misnomer. This is not a maths test, as we will see with how many ways we can use the calculator. It's really a typing and looking test. That's all it is. What we really need to do, so take all that energy that in GCSEs, A-levels, IB, you put into doing all the really hard maths working, put that energy into reading the question. What is it actually asking you? It's astonishing how many points students lose, sometimes hundreds of points, because they're misreading the question. So number one thing, I want to read the question fully and think, can I use a technique here? Can I use Desmos? Don't ever skimp on writing out your working. Write all your working, check it. Before moving on from every maths question, double check what the question actually asked. So this is what I would screenshot these bullet points because it's these seemingly simple or little things that make such a difference in accuracy, and it's absolutely vital to do all of these things if you're looking for an 800. When I say learn question patterns, SAT really is written on patterns. You will see frequency tables that come up in exactly the same way every time. Transformation of function questions that are basically identical between papers. There is a question that they've put on the essay that they've just come out with, SAT 11. It's essentially identical to one in SAT 7. There's another one in SAT 11 that's essentially identical to one in SAT 6. So the more confident you are in answering, in answering the questions that have already appeared, the more armed you are, the more prepared you are for test day. So it's a really good idea after you've sat a test and really carefully gone through the corrections. That's very vital. Don't just look at it and go, oh yeah, of course it's that one. No, that is not how you will improve. You want to redo every error, redo the question from scratch, write out what was the cause of that error, and it will take a long time to do that. And for each error, what step can you implement to preempt that error next time? That reflection, that's really, really, really important. That is how you're going to get your 800 in maths. And it's the same principle in English. It's the same principle in improving in anything, really. We want to do that performance analysis. What did you do? What steps were you implementing to succeed in this area on this question? Where did you go awry that caused you to lose the point on this question? How do you preempt that next time? That's what you want to do every single time, and that is how you will see consistent improvement. So I'm going to actually stop sharing on our on that PDF and instead go to my beloved whiteboard. So yes, I know the meeting's being recorded. Go away. Excellent. All right, now all of these are these next few questions are going to be Desmos questions. And if you don't know what Desmos is, oh, have I got a gift for you. So Desmos is a graphing calculator. It is built into the Blue Book app, so you will always have access on the SAT Maths to Desmos. You can bring your own graphing calculator if you like, but you don't have to. And we want to harness Desmos to do barely any maths. That is the goal. So for these questions, what I want to hopefully demonstrate to you is that we want to know what they're asking, but we don't actually need to do the maths in order to do the question. So let's look at question 12. And I'm going to highlight our keywords. Which quadratic equation has exactly one distinct real solution? Okay, SAT loves the word solution. Okay, so there are a couple of things. There are a couple of vocab words that we need to know with this. And I'm going to put this in red so it really makes sense. So a solution to an equation means our x-intercept. Which is what we're dealing with here. If, for example, it was a solution to a system of equations, I wish I could hear what you guys are saying. I'm sure people are shouting at the screen. It would be the crossing point of the lines, crossing point of the straight lines, crossing lines of the quadratics, etc., etc. So we are dealing with the x-intercept, and hopefully we want only one. All right, so I'm going to go to Desmos. I'm going to use my answers. So one of these is the answer to our question, okay? So I'm going to type these into Desmos and look at the picture. X plus 15 squared. X plus 15 squared. Aha! Well, that's just got one. Terrific. That's looking like our answer, but for talking's sake, let's look at the other ones as well. So B is minus 45. Where do we have over here? Actually, because they're minus 45, it won't even appear. But I've got my 45 here. We've got one distinct solution, and it is indeed A. So you will see this is really common. Simultaneous equations, which are such a big thing of GCSE, you never ever need to substitute or subtract. You don't need to solve simultaneous equations ever with the SAT. Please, if you see a graph, just put it into Desmos and look for the picture. That's all we need to do. If we have time, I will show you a plug-in backsolve Desmos combination. Okay, let's look at 14, which is, we're again going to use Desmos, but we're going to use an aspect of something called Desmos regression. Okay, so we have this graphing function table. What we need to know, so what you or what your students need to know, is that this table is a set of coordinates. We've got our x, okay, that's more obvious, but our right-hand column is our y, because g of x equals y. So the whole unit of g of x equals the y coordinate that we're dealing with. Okay, so that is the theory that we need to know. What are being asked? And it is a linear function. Okay, and this can be rewritten here, and we're looking for the value of b. Now, I will say I am highlighting here. On Blue Book, you can highlight in English. You cannot highlight in maths, which is dreadfully unfortunate. However, we are given scrap paper for maths. So SAT maths, what I am highlighting here, I recommend that you write down on your scrap paper. And again, before I go to Desmos, what I would be saying to myself is, okay, value of b, which, to the eagle eye among you, will be the y-intercept of this line. So we could do the maths of, we could find two coordinates and find the slope, the gradient of those coordinates, and then use that gradient, and one of the points, we could use, so this would be the y equals mx plus c. We could use two coordinates to find the gradient, and then once we've got that, we could put a coordinate in for x and y, and that would give us our c, or indeed our b. We could do that, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but by goodness there's a quicker way. So let us do that. Let's go back to Desmos again, get rid of this, and I'm going to back to my home. Now, if you click plus table, it will open up a table. Okay, so I'm going to type in my coordinates. So I've got 132, 228. 132, 2, and it will just keep giving you lines. Keep giving you rows. 324, 420. 324, 420. So the effort that I'm not putting into doing lots of maths working, I'm putting into double checking the question. So let me double check these coordinates. 132, 132, 228, 228, yes, 324, 420. Okay, this is correct. And that's the kind of, on the test, you would not need to go between windows. It will just open up to you on Blue Book. So it's a lot less annoying. Okay, so we've typed in our coordinates. We're now going to hit this add regression. Aha. So not only will it draw the line for us with the points so these are the points I was given. Not only will it draw that line, but it will give you the equation. I can see that this equation is negative 4x plus 36. Okay. And we're looking for b. Let me move that around. And b is 36, which is our right answer. No maths required. Now, because this is so bizarre, I'm going to do it again with a different question. Okay, so I'm going to go to 17 now. Now, this is a quadratic. Got 3 values of x and their corresponding values of f of x. So just to reiterate that, what that is saying is that our top row is x and our bottom row is y. And so we've got the coordinates 24, 0, 8, 30, sorry, minus 8, 30 minus 8, and 32, 8. So I would be writing this out on my scrap paper. And we're looking for which equation defines f. Okay, so we're looking for, if these are our coordinates, which one of these is the equation of the parabola, or the quadratic. Again, we could work it out mathematically, nothing wrong with that, but let's not. So, 24 minus 8, 30 minus 8. Okay, so I'm going to go back here again. We're back to our home, hit plus, table. Let's put these in. I've already forgotten what they are. So 24 minus 8. 24 minus 8. I'm pretty sure the next one is 30 minus 8, but I will double check. It was 30 minus 8. Good. And 32, 8. Okay. 32, 8. Okay. So I'm going to hit this regression sign. Now, it will automatically go linear regression. That is not what we're wanting. This says quadratic function. We're looking for a quadratic. So there's a drop-down menu. So I'm just going to go from linear to quadratic. Fantastic. So it has drawn the graph for me. Now you will notice that if this is our equation, that doesn't match any of these. However, we still don't need to do maths. It's still just typing. So this is the graph of the answer setup. So if I put in a new line, what I'm now going to do is type in each answer choice in turn, and I'm looking for the answer choice that exactly overlaps this purple one in the question. Okay. So A is x minus 24, x minus 30, and plus 4. X minus 24, x minus 30, plus 4. Now I'll double check my typing. That was minus 24, minus 30, plus 4. This is correct. But this does not overlap. Perfectly nice quadratic, but it's not the one we're looking for. Okay, so therefore, it is not A. Now B is the same thing, but it's -8. Okay, so let's do that. So this is nice. That's the nice thing about Desmos. Once I've typed it in once, I can just do -8. Aha! Now we're exactly overlapping. And our answer is indeed B. So again, we did not need to do maths for that. We needed to know the theory of y, of f of x meaning y. We needed to know what a quadratic is in general form, but actually we just need to know then how to use Desmos. Let's look at this one. Question 60, and that's a 17, so there's only 22 maths questions, so I'm pretty sure I brought that from module 2. So this is designed as one of the harder questions on SAT maths, and indeed, if we were to do, you know, the kind of brute force mathematics of it, it would be finicky, it would require thought. But why it's so useful to use these techniques and tools available to us, aside from the fact of being a great deal more pleasant, is that they lessen the load on our working memory, which means that we're less fatigued when we get to the questions that we do need to do brute force maths. And occasionally you will find those questions. They are not common, they are indeed occasional, but they do happen. And you need, if you're a student who's, you know, maybe sitting at 700, shooting for 800, you need time for those final few questions that just are very hard. Again, don't give you many points, so, you know, you can still get above 1500 very comfortably by not doing them. But let's say we want to get 800, so we want to get those questions. We need time to get those questions up. Maybe Einstein couldn't. Okay, Einstein probably could do them very quickly, but okay, you know, very good people, very good mathematicians still need a few minutes. We get those few minutes by, over time and exposure and reflection, learning what questions we can use these techniques on to save sometimes a couple of minutes, sometimes even just 10 or 15 seconds. But if you can save 10 or 15 seconds on 6 questions, that's your minute and a half that you need to answer that final question that's vexing you. Okay, so let's look at this one. Question task is our slope on the line of best fit. Something that I would draw your attention to is just be wary. This is very classic SAT. The axes they're being kind. The axis is not changing here, but very often it does. So, for example, maybe it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but on the y, but maybe on the x it goes 2, 4, 6, 8. So they haven't done that here, but that is a very common SAT thing to do. So always double check the axes. Okay, so again, for finding slope, we need some points. This point looks nice, and it's of the line of best fit. Okay, this point looks nice. This point looks nice. So that point is 3, 5. And this point is 8, 8. So again, could do, you know, the y equals y2. So over 1, absolutely. Can't do that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Do double check that you've put the right coordinates over the other. Also, it's very common for students under time and pressure to put the x on top, even though they've spent 3 years of their life or something putting the y on top. It's no criticism, but it does happen. It's very, very easy to happen. So I would instead, you know, I would go plus table. What was it? 3, 5, and 8, 8. 3, 5, 8, 8. You know, let it do it for you. 0.6, and our answer is indeed A. So it's honest. I mean, and I do appreciate that is probably for the very swift among you. It's probably the same amount of time, but again, we're looking for the safer option. So just always be cognizant of that. We do need to double check our typing with Desmos, but let's go for the safer one. 22. Yes, and again, talking about question patterns, so this question is 22, but this is also, I think, 21 on SAT 7. I've also seen it be a 14, I think, on SAT 10. So, I mean, really the same question, except I think they changed this number, and maybe they've said M% instead of P. But, I mean, the pattern, it's ridiculous. It's quite, I mean, I imagine it's cost saving for them, right, to be able to basically copy and paste the same questions and change one number. So, but you can use that. You can use that. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. We're going to use Desmos to do it. You could use a technique here. In fact, let's read the question. So the weight of sample A is 468% of sample B. Sample A is 0.78, sample C. If sample C is P%, the weight of sample B, what is the value of P? Goodness me, what a question to read. Okay, if I was doing this mathematically, I still wouldn't do it totally mathematically. I would plug in a number, and I would plug in a number for B. If I was doing this mathematically, I would make B 100. Why 100? Because we're dealing with percents. And dealing with percents, if we replace a variable with 100, it means we don't need to convert further down the line. So we could do sample A is 468% of 100. Okay, so we can now find what that is, 468, for example, and we can start. And it becomes quantifying with numbers instead of variables is always a good idea. If you're on a how to get an 800 in math, I'm going to presume that you understand how the percentages work. So I'm going to move on from that and go to Desmos, because that might be the thing that's less known to you. So again, I'm going to go back to Desmos, but this time I'm just going to do my typing. So if I open square brackets, I can start to get Desmos to work for me in equations. So this was, if A is, and I'm going to close this, is our squiggly line. So if A is 468% of B. Okay, so I'm going to translate that. So A, and when I put a comma, well, I'll come to the comma later. So A, with square brackets, is the squiggle 468. As soon as I type the percentage sign, it automatically does the of B. So I've just written that line into Desmos. When I do a comma, it's an indication to the code that we're now dealing with a new equation. And the weight of sample A is 0.78% the weight of sample C. Okay, so again, we're talking about A. A is 0.78% of C. And C is P% of B. Okay. C, P%, B, let me close brackets. Okay, so to recap, I am using square brackets to instigate the regression feature. I'm using commas to indicate every new line of equation. I'm using our squiggle. You must use that instead of an equal sign. If you use an equal sign, it will not work, just because of how Desmos is built. And there, it's given me P is 60,000. And that is our answer. Now that's a 22. They basically did this exact same question, but made it kind of a 14 or 15. And it was because instead of a 0.78, it was something like 40% or 60%. It was something that did not involve a decimal. they're really relying on students accidentally doing 78% or 7.8 or something like that. So yeah, just you can absolutely use, put in a number for B and and you will get to 60,000. But typing is so much more secure. So that's so Desmos and Desmos graphing, Desmos regression. That is what for these you can save a few minutes or a few seconds, a few minutes on these kind of questions, and that's really going to help you down the line. Our final question on maths. Again, talking about question patterns. Goodness, I have seen this question come up a lot. We're always renting something. This is a bus. I've seen canoeing equipment. I've seen them rent, I think something like a copy machine or a fax. It was something bizarre. But anyway, so now $9.50 for the first 3 hours and an additional $50 per hour for each hour after the first 3 hours. Total cost, if the total cost is this and T is the hours, what represents that? Okay. I strongly recommend putting in a number for T. So this is called our plug-in method. We are replacing variables with a number and it makes it a hell of a lot safer. I have a lot of students that just dive into this. Algebraically, sometimes it works. It does not work consistently. Because of the multiple choice, they are designing these answer choices to be really tempting to choose the wrong one. So play it safe, pick a number. Now we have to pick a number for T that's greater than 3. So let's say T is 4. So what we're learning here, so our first 3 hours cost, $9.50. $9.50 is the first 3 hours, additional 50. Okay, so the fourth hour costs 50. So our total cost for 4 hours then is 1,000. Now I do realize that none of these answer choices equal 1,000. Frankly, I'm ignoring this because if they all equal 1150, then that's not a difference between them, so it's not helping me work out. It's not helping me differentiate between them. So I'm ignoring that. So when T is 4, our total cost is 1,000. So now I'm going to go through the answer choices and see which one of them gives me 1,000. So A, so it'll be 950, 4 minus 3 plus 50 times 4. So 950 times 1, that's just going to be 950. 950 plus 200 is not, and we're looking for 1,000. It is not going to be that. So that's not looking great. 950 times 3 times 4 plus 50 times 4. Okay, so that would be 950 times 12 plus 200. That's going to be too big. 950 times 12 when I'm only looking for one more. It's definitely not going to be that. 950 plus 50. Now again, T is 4, so 4 minus 3. 950. 950 plus 50. 1,000. Which is indeed our answer. So that is a match. I do think it's good idea to look at all our answer choices. So 950 plus 50 times 12, that's going to be too big. So it's definitely not that one. So when you see variables in the question and variables in the answer, I very much recommend replace those variables with a number. Make it something small, not 1, not 0. Pay attention to any restrictions in the question, such as here, T needed to be above 3. Okay. We are done with SAT Maths. Long story short, please double check the question. Please write out your working. Please use Desmos. Please use techniques. Don't do it the way that you've always done it. That's not what SAT is testing. SAT English. Okay, so there are certain things that we need to know. These rules that I've put up here, we need to know how verbs function, that they need to connect to their subjects, how pronouns function, you know, the difference between whose, W-H-O-S-E, and W-H-O''S, for example. For SAT English, when we say SAT writing, there is no essay on the SAT. There is no essay. The SAT writing is grammar questions and these expression of ideas questions. So grammar questions, and then the expression of ideas are transition words and note questions. So there's no actual writing involved. For all of the grammar questions, it's really important you must read the full sentence, highlight the subject and main verb, and see what other punctuation is in there. We're going to practice that. For reading, you want to read the question first. And again, that's different. Read the question first. Then read the full passage, even if it's just vocab. Read the full passage. Think about what's the main point of this passage. Highlight the key words. So our descriptive words, transition words, our core sentence, subject, verb, object. And then this is really important. Paraphrase, so create an answer in your own words. You haven't looked at the answer choices yet. You've read the question, you've read the passage. What is it asking? You've made your own answer using textual evidence, then eliminate through the answers. And just a tip for SAT, never assume a word is too weird, as we will see. And again, Module 1 rules apply. You want to be getting that fully correct. Sorry, I'm sorry this is going back and forth. I just want to make sure that we're doing as many questions as possible. Okay. SAT English. My other tip for SAT English is to leave, so our hardest questions are going to be our reading questions, so we want to do them last. And our questions are always going to be in a set order. Say 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be vocab, and then it's going to be reading, say 5 to 15, and then about 16, it starts again. It changes to grammar, and then expression of ideas and things like that. So basically you want to do this 5 to 15 section, you do that last. Definitely, you will save so much time that way. So you could either work backwards and work through the writing and then start from the beginning and do the full reading, or you could do vocab, so answer question 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to grammar and then come back to reading. It's very quick to go between questions on Blue Book. It works very, very well. So I'm going to go in the order that I'm suggesting here. So let's start with vocab. And I've pulled the hardest questions. Again, if you have not sat SAT 11 yet, I would not watch this webinar until you have done so, and then let's review them together. Okay. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? This is a vocab question. Vocab will always be worded like that, and it's always going to be question 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to read it, highlight keywords as I go along, and work out what it's saying. The familial structure of the black swan shows tremendous something. Breeding pairs with demonstrated success in rearing cygnets have been observed to foster those of less successful pairs. While rearing by male-female pairs is most common, male-male pairs sometimes rear cygnets too, achieving a significantly higher rate of survival to adulthood than female pairs. Right, okay, what's my main idea here? Okay, swan families, some pairs are better than others, and the pairs are raising cygnets. So main idea, in swan families, some pairs better child raising than others, better pairs take on the children, for example. So that's my main idea of the passage. And now I want to think of what my word is. Okay, so I'll be honest, the first time I did this question, I thought of something like working together, because I was looking at breeding pairs with success, fostering those of less successful pairs. I mostly focused on this. Yeah, if I'm being honest, that's what I did. So let's go to the answers. So I was thinking about working together, which really put me to cohesion, kind of. Yeah, I can see that. Elasticity, I first was like, that seems weird, okay. Affection, I knew it wasn't affection because this is about successful child rearing. You don't have to be affectionate to raise a child well. Like maybe they're really strict swan parents, but do it well. So it's definitely not that. Reciprocity is tempting, but reciprocity, I don't have evidence for reciprocity. Reciprocity would be the successful pairs foster the cygnets of the less successful ones, and in return, the less successful pairs gather food for the flock, for example. So there's no reciprocity, it cannot be that. So then I have to really think about cohesion and elasticity, and it occurs to me, well, cohesion doesn't really mention, like, what is cohesive about the second part? This would just be there, which isn't really how the SAT works. So then I went back and thought, well, what if my anticipation instead could have been something like flexibility? Is that correct? So is it flexible for more successful pairs to take on the kids of less successful pairs? Yes, you can see that's flexibility. And is it flexible to go between genders of the pairs? Yeah, that's also flexible. So elasticity is our answer. Even though, and this is what I meant about don't write off the bizarre words, because that is bizarre, right? Like, when have we heard of elasticity ever referred to like relationships of living beings? Very, very strange. But cohesion just, there wasn't, the second half of it just didn't match to cohesion, so it cannot be that. So find the main, read the full text, find the main idea, and you want something that reflects the full text. Now I'm putting these verb questions, so I would do vocab, 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 and then as soon as I stop seeing most logical, precise word and phrase, as soon as the question changes, I'm skipping ahead to maybe 15, 16, 17, and I'm looking for which choice completes the text so it conforms to the conventions of standard English. These are our grammar words. They will always be grammar questions, always worded like that. So now, this is what I'm saying about go to the sentence with the gap. We want to read the full sentence with the gap, find the subject, and find the main verb. There's pieces, utilizing elements. So we don't have a main verb yet, because ing, not a main verb. Attempt is a verb, but it's too far on to the end of the question. So we've got all these, so we are putting a verb here. So what's our subject? What is doing the exploring? Well, I'm looking to get rid of words between two commas and prepositional phrases. So my third point on what to do, I said read the full sentence with the gap, highlight the subject verb pair, and note any punctuation. So I note that I've got a comma here and a comma here. Now I have other commas. I've got, this comma there and that comma there, but they're in a list. Plant dyed fabrics, wire crab tracks filled with stones, and cotton balls dangling above a fan. That is a list. So that's what those commas are doing. These commas are working together to indicate to me that this is a non-essential interrupting phrase. The subject will never follow a preposition, such as of, in, under, with, and it will never be in an interrupting phrase. So pieces, and also the subject is never going to be apostrophe S. Apostrophe S, not the subject, get rid of that. So our subject is pieces. Pieces is a plural subject. Plural subject needs a plural verb. My only plural verb is explore. The other thing to bear in mind for verbs, I'm going to put it on here, look for the odd one out with verb questions. So I had plural verb, singular verb, not a main verb, so it can't be that. So plural is our odd one out. Frankly, I'm looking at 19, and I'll be honest, the first thing I did is bear in mind verb question, odd one out. So I'm looking at singular verb, plural verb, plural verb, plural verb. Our answer is it will be our odd one out, but let's double check that. So, and again, there's only one sentence here, so I'm going to read the full thing. Tracy Fullerton's, okay, well that's apostrophe S, so that's not going to be our subject. Walden, comma, a game. That's tough, but it's italicized, so the whole thing is a thing. Comma, an unlikely fusion of the writings of 19th century transcendental. Okay, so I'm noticing a comma here, I'm noticing a comma here. The words in between them cannot stand by themselves. Don't assume that words between two commas cannot stand by themselves. Don't assume that. Hire me if you want to know why, but just don't assume it. It could be an independent clause with extra stuff on either side, or it could be an interrupting clause that is interrupting an independent clause, and that's what we've got here. Long story short, I noticed two commas, I noticed the words in between them cannot stand by themselves, so I get rid of that, which shows to me that our subject is indeed Walden, a game. That is a singular subject. So yes, indeed, it was this. If you're pushed for time, look for odd one out. You do need to be very good at spotting independent versus, singular versus plural verbs. You do need to be confident in that. 19, I'm just going to give a tip. No names, no punctuation around names on the SAT. I see a name, I'm going to go the one with no punctuation. There is a longer grammatical reason for that, which I don't have time to get into, but every single time a name has ever appeared on the SAT, the correct answer has been no punctuation. So for the sake of time, just don't put punctuation around names. Just take my word for it. If you can dissect the grammar to be like there are grammatical reasons for it, but for the sake of time, just don't put punctuation around names. This is a hard question. 20. This is hard. Again, it's verbs. And how do I know these are verb questions? Because the answer choices are verbs. If the answer choices were all pronouns, I'd be calling them pronoun questions. But these are all verbs, so they're verb questions. Okay. And something I notice in this is that had prioritized, was prioritizing, prioritized. These are all main verb forms. By that, I could say, she had prioritized, full stop. She was prioritizing, full stop. She prioritized, full stop. I couldn't say she prioritizing, full stop. ING is not a main verb. So again, odd one out, I would be looking really hard at our, sorry, I've just typed in main twice. So I'd be looking very hard at the odd one out. So let's follow our steps. So we read the full sentence, and there's only one. We find the subject main verb pair. Instead of sleeping on soft pillows, ancient Egyptians slept on hard, elevated headrests. They were designed airflow, protection from insects, and hairstyle maintenance over comfort. So there's already, so I can see ancient Egyptians slept. That is subject main verb pair. So ancient Egyptians slept on hard, elevated headrests. This is our independent clause. Independent clause is something that can stand by itself. And yes, it is between two commas. So it can stand by itself because it's got a subject verb pair. They are properly joined. I'm going to put that to the side so you can see. Okay. And then I also said step 3, step 1, read the full sentence. Step 2, highlight the subject main verb. Step 3, note the punctuation. So there's a comma here. And because there's a comma here, we cannot have a main verb. Cannot have main verb. We cannot have a main verb here because we need, because otherwise it would be independent, comma. If we had a main verb, that would make this second part independent. And this is wrong. We cannot have independent, comma, independent. That is a comma splice. That is wrong. So again, rules that you need to know are the comma rules, American comma rules, which are different from the UK ones, the punctuation to join clauses. I really recommend our Book of Knowledge for that. You could also get the rules other way, but you do need to know them. So you need to go into it knowing this and then follow those steps. So you identify, this can't be an independent clause. So I need one. I need an answer choice that does not create an independent clause. And that is D. I'm running out of time for our other questions, but I do want to briefly go back onto our board just to kind of wrap up there. So again, I would screenshot this this board because really, if you follow these steps here, that is what you're going to want for this top score. Preparation really is a marathon. I talked before about how important it is to carefully reflect on why you make certain errors. So we need this content, the grammar that I said. You want to be able to work out what difficult texts are saying very, very quickly. So do practice that. Read widely, read quality. Please get off your phones. If you want a 1600 in SAT, get off social media and get off AI. Those two things are really not your friend with a 1600 because everything that they are doing, they're killing your attention span, they're killing your close reading, and they're killing your problem-solving ability. So all of the things that you need to succeed on the SAT, social media and AI are eroding. So until you get the SAT score you want, I would not open either of those things. Frankly, I wouldn't open them anyway, but anyway, that's my personal opinion. But as a coach, don't use them, they're bad, not useful for the SAT. And you want your preparation to be, yes, full-time tests, but also hone in on the questions that you're not getting correct. Work on that first and then go back to the timing. And again, as I said, learn the design of the test, so reflect on questions and tests after you've done them. On Blue Book, there are tests 4 to 11. As third-party resources, I really recommend the practice tests of Princeton Review and Test Innovator. They are difficult. I think they're good quality. I have all my students doing them. The Princeton Review, the Blue Book is free. The Princeton Review, Test Innovator are paid, but I don't work for them. I don't get any. I just find them useful. For individual questions, Khan Academy is good up until you're already in the 1400s. If you're in the 1400s, it's not going to help you get much further, but these other ones are. College Board Question Bank is also free. Again, as I said, it's a good idea to strategically sacrifice the hardest questions, the hardest maybe 1, 2, 3 on module 2, but still put an answer down and keep moving. Black hole question, there are questions that are designed to suck all your time. We don't want that. Keep moving. If you're not sure, flag and move on. Flag and move on. Come back to it if you've got time. And we are at time, I am afraid, my friends. But if you please put any questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to send out answers. Someone has asked, can you take multiple SAT exams and use the one you want? Yes. With most universities, check each university that you're applying to. But yes, you can sit the SAT as many times as you will give College Board money. It is a for-profit company after all. Or it's at least a company that charges things. And most universities will super score. So you would say you have your highest math in March and your highest English in May, you could present to the university your March math and your May English, or whichever one that way around was. So yes, most universities super score. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that was useful. I know it was such a whistle-stop tour. I wish I'd gotten a chance to get through even more English questions, but best of luck. Please do reach out if you have any further questions. And it was a pleasure talking to you about the delights of the SAT. I really do love this test. Again, we have a boot camp on the 28th to the 30th of March. The early bird pricing lasts for this week, and the webinar code, the code webinar 2402, aka the date of today, webinar 2402, will get you 10% off our 5-hour tuition. So best of luck, and I look forward to hopefully hearing from you about your SAT success.